Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbes, and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live. And this evening is the 9th of February 2016, and we were supposed to be at the polls today. But I have the leader of the UP and Member of Parliament, MP Theodore. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Oral, and good evening to the population out there as well. And great being on your program. I like how you started off. I even totally forgot about that.
Yeah, no, but it didn't happen, unfortunately.
That's right.
Are you disappointed that elections were not held today?
Well, Oral, being disappointment, I can't say that I'm disappointed. I mean, we had elections, and the former Prime Minister had called for new elections. I think, in my opinion, it would have sent the right message of this throwing down governments, for whatever personal reasons, should not be tolerated anymore. If a political party wants to pull their support or whatever from a coalition, that's part of the governing process. But breaking governments for no reason and no fundamental issues of discourse, those things shouldn't be tolerated. So it would have sent the right message. I think it would have. Unfortunately, the situation changed, and now we're looking at a possible September election. I say possible because I think the present government will try to extend their present stay in the government as well again.
You think that will be legally possible this time around?
Well, I don't think it was legally possible the first time when they when they changed it from February to September. But I've noticed one thing. They got the support of the governor. They got the support in The Hague, and I always say that there's rules for the National Alliance, and there's rules for the UP. If we had tried doing something like that, I think the whole of the Dutch government would have, they probably would have sent the Marines down here saying that we've hijacked democracy. So, it's quite unfortunate. It's been challenged. And, unfortunately, well, we're looking at a September election for now.
Now, the budget meetings are going on right now.
That's correct.
How do you feel about this budget?
Well, it's, I enjoy the opening statement by the Minister of Finance. They said it's a shotgun budget. This budget is only for doing one thing, or they want to pass the budget as much as possible or as fast as possible, because in the budget there's a substantial amount for capital investment. So the government wants to show that, well, we've been able to cut the expenditures, but now let's go into some serious loans. I think in the tune of 70-something million will be in the capital expenditures, and that's where different projects will be executed and push forward to the population to say, hey, we've been doing something in our time in government. So that's really what they're pushing very fast for. As a matter of fact, there's even a few fastballs in the budget. What they've done, they've even put into the budget the sale of the government building to the SZV. That, to me, in my opinion, should be a meeting by itself, a meeting of Parliament by itself. You just can't just stick it into the budget to try and pull a fastball there's no transparency in it, because you need to explain the population, you need to explain Parliament how you're going to take an asset of government and actually sell it, and how is it going to work, who's going to do the construction, who's going to do the renovation, who's going to, is these things going to go on bid? Those questions need to be answered to Parliament as well. And you're pushing it into a huge budget that, a lot of cuts have been made, questions have been posed in the Central Committee. Most of my questions will come in the open session of Parliament, which will be on this coming Friday.
My good friend MP Leona Marlin asked very interesting questions.
Yes.
And I think you're right in that regard, that the sale of that building should have been handled separately.
Yeah, I like I told you, Oral, I enjoy that there's certain rule books. Over the years, there was no transparency. I've always been, you have to show transparency, and you have to come to Parliament and debate it. And guess what? These guys, I think they're doing far worse than what we've done over the years in terms of transparency and open book type politics. You've tried to hide it within the issue of the budget itself.
Have you seen the appraisal report on that building before it was sold?
No, I have not seen the appraisal report. I think that's one of the questions that have been posed, and I think they should be forthcoming. And again, I say transparent. The building itself, it's amazing to see that a new building is actually an old building because it's now nearly, I think, close to 8 years or more actually that building has been sitting empty. It's cost the taxpayers a lot of money because we constantly are continuing to pay rent. And I don't see that even when we move into to the new building, that we're not going to be set with certain contracts, still paying rents for a lot of buildings. I mean, government needs to look at certain expenditures. And then the question is going to be, Oral, then what's going to happen to those that have been collecting rent? You're going to have a lot of buildings that no longer have people in there. That's going to affect the economy too, because you have local landowners that build buildings and have been renting to government. So that's going to be an effect as well that we have to look at. And what's going to happen is going to be a glut of office space if it is done right.
Right now, the big problem is GEBE. And I know you came out recently against the money that is there. But let me ask you this. If GEBE is not the owner for water production, they're just responsible for distribution. And I've always heard that there was never any profit in the water. Then where did that money come from?
Oral, I had the opportunity through the people of St. Martin in 1995 to be elected to the Island Council and then also to serve as a commissioner. And I also had the opportunity to serve on the board of GB and work with Mr. Lambert and several other board members. And in that time, the water company was losing tens of millions of guilders per year. And it was being subsidized. Actually, they had three areas that were being subsidized by the electricity consumers of our country, which was Sabre, Statia, and the water company. As a matter of fact, at the end of the day, GB used to, if they made a profit, was like 500,000 guilders. So the whole issue was that they had huge backlogs in investment. The first change in that water contract was when NSR was awarded the new water contract, and I believe that was in 1997, and we were able to drop the price considerably by nearly 50%, and then we signed another contract extension with NSR, and then I think the present company, Seven Seas, also further reduction. So over the years, over the last 15 years, you've seen significant reductions in the water production for the country. However, the water losses continue to be in very astronomical amounts, close to 35–40% water losses. So you're throwing away 40% of the water. Also, the electricity company is giving a subsidized electricity rate to the water company in order to make sure that the water rates to the population never had to be increased. So if you really want to compare apples to apples, then the water company would have to be paying the present tariffs of the electricity company and thus not being subsidized. Now, a few things, Oral. The water company is owned by the island government or the country of St. Martin. The electricity company is owned by the country of St. Martin. So saying that, yeah, it's our company, but both belong to you. Now, a few other things. GB, over the years, has been able to build on her reserves because, again, you got to look at something. These are huge capital investments. When one engine has to be replaced, you're talking about close to 12–13 million US dollars, okay? It's not a product that you can go in, by a supermarket, pick off the shelf. No, this thing has to be ordered years in advance and made sure that your planning is correct. When we were in government, every government-owned company had to show an investment plan towards government. GB has an investment plan of over 110 million, okay? They have loans that are presently by Pacific Mutual in the United States of America at about $35 million, okay? You're taking now the reserves of the company. A hurricane hits St. Martin, and I had the unfortunate position of being on the board when a hurricane hit, and GB couldn't even pay the fuel company to be able to buy fuel to produce electricity. Because
That
for
was
months,
95?
that was in 95, because for months, Oral, you didn't have any income coming into the company. GB itself has obligations to its employees for its pension benefits and its other social programs that have been signed in CLAs done by the unions and GB itself. All of these are things that have to come out of the company's position. Because of this, I would call it a roller coaster ride of changing directors in the company as well, CEOs of the company or COOs of the company. The investment program has never been carried out to the full extent. So that is also why you have this accumulated amount in reserves, because if had the company continued to carry out the investment program, it would have been a lot less. You know, it's not like a harbor or an airport where you just do the runway, for example, it costs 25 million, or you do a new pier and it costs 35 million, and it's, you know, one big check. No, when you're doing new water lines, new electrical lines have to be replaced, new engines, you're talking about, you know, major infrastructure projects that have to go on within the community. And my point on this one as well, Oral, you have, why is it only that they chose GB to take 31 million guilders out of? The airport has close to 35 million US dollars sitting in the Bank of America in New York City. The harbor has over 20-something million, I think, euros sitting in the Netherlands. Well, then take from each government company to put into government. You're only picking on one company, and in my position, one of the most vital companies to the community of our country itself, because we're sitting here now, guess what? Using electricity from GB. We take a shower using the water of GB. So if there's some calamity hits this country, you're going to affect tens of thousands of people that use GB every day. And in addition, the amount of employees that GB also has, and the other social interactions, you're really plundering the company.
But I understand the government claim that it's not true. They don't really want that amount of money from GB.
But Oral, you know, I love it when people say that I'm a liar, because then you just make me go out and find the information. There is a resolution from the shareholders signed by the Prime Minister stating that, listen, pending the results, we want 10 million now, and another 10 million from the water, and another 10 million then from the electricity, which comes out to about 30. I think one is 11, one is 10, and one is 10, so it comes out to be 31 million guilders. And in the budget, I believe is page 15 of the budget, it says of the budget of the country of St. Martin, it asks that the Ministry of VSR to go and look for 10 million from GB. Now, I don't know if that is in addition. So that would mean that you're plundering the company for close to 41 million guilders. You know, if you listened well to the National Alliance over the years, you'd have also heard them, oh, electricity prices are astronomical and everything. Okay, good. When then stop taking money out of the company and tell them, all right, reduce electricity rates so that the entire community of St. Martin then can feel more added relief than actually just taking the money out of the country, out of the company.
But the thing is, when you look at government-owned companies, how many government-owned companies are paying dividends or concession fee right now?
Okay, well, that's very important, Oral, that you just asked that question. GB and the harbor, GB pays 5 million in concession fees to government, pays all her social premiums to government and the other institutions. The harbor, I think, pays the highest. It is 5.3 or closer to 5.5 million to government. Telem pays Bureau Telecom some sort of fees as well. I think it's about 1 or 2 million per year as well. But they are not a real concession fee to government. And the airport doesn't pay any concession fees to government. And I've always been a proponent that every government company should pay at least 5 million, and you put it in your operation books that you pay government 5 million. But taking out cash, I'm going to tell you another one. In I believe it is 1998 or somewhere around there, the National Alliance was in government. They made Telem go to the bank, get a loan to pay a 30 million guilder dividend to government. And you can see now, Oral, and I'm not bad talking Telem, but Telem since then has not been able to catch its footing. If you look through reports in terms of telecom throughout the Caribbean, St. Martin is next to last. And you know who's the last? It's Cuba. This is not something that we should be proud of. And this is something that if you get governments in place, take huge amounts of cash out of the companies or put them in huge debts and not allow them to invest. I mean, fiber to the home. Or we're talking about 8 megabytes as if it's like in the US right now, I think to a home, you can get 100 megabytes, nearly 150 megabytes to your home. You're talking little St. Kitts over there, double the amount of megabytes. Anguilla, all of these islands are double St. Martin speed rate. When you have friends come over, they tell you, man, what kind of place you all have there. We have one of the best tourism infrastructures, and telecom-wise, we're way behind. And all I'm just saying is I don't want to see this happen to GB because GB is has real good employees, people that work very hard. I don't want to see anything happen to this company.
I have to ask you this because after the government fell, a new government came in, and when I heard the current Minister of Finance speaking, it looked like the government that you supported had everything really in a mess.
Yeah, well, you know, Oral,
is that correct?
Well, Oral, you know, if you listen to the minister, any minister is going to get up and to justify his being there, his sense of well-being, is that the former government did everything wrong. I mean, that's especially normal with them because that's the only way they can justify a change in government.
But was Hassing that bad? Because I got scared when I started hearing these figures because Hassing was there. I consider him to be a professional. And when I hear what I'm hearing now, it's kind of scary.
Well, you know what the nicest thing about it also, Oral, is that Hassing was there when the National Alliance was in government as well. So it isn't to say that, you know, Theo brought him in and he was the worst Minister of Finance. And with all due respect to Hassing, you know, he's lived on this island so long, you know, local kids, everybody as well. And he lives in the community. And I've told him before, I think sometimes he was a little bit too soft when it came with the ministries. And, you know, he has to look at it also, political situation where, you know, the ministries are asking for things to be able to move ahead. And his point was always trying to be able to push ahead with certain things. And I feel for him because had the Dutch delivered on the things that were promised in 10-10-10, we would not have the kind of financial problem that we're having in terms of income, Oral. And that's the key issue. So, well, I'll give you something. We were promised with the debts of St. Martin close to what, over 100 and something million. We never received those monies from the Netherlands. You know, if you look at the police force, the Justice Ministry itself, the amount of money that was owed in backlogs and everything as well. Our present police force, if you look at their pension programs and everything like that, we're nowhere close to being up to date with them. And when the time does come that we have to live up to those agreements, that's why the union itself was upset, and rightfully so, because things were promised and things have to be delivered.
Well, I understand that the Dutch government was asking for receipts that the Ministry of Finance could not provide, or did not provide.
Oh, well, they provide them, Oral, because I can remember I was in government there, but there are certain receipts that dated back nearly 10 years, you know, and but one thing you got to understand is that they love to move the goalposts, you know. You give them receipts and then they want to know something else, and you tell them, well, listen, some of these debts are nearly 6 years old, 7 years old. You know, you can't go back to the creditor and have them find out. So the receipts, there's the contracts were there and everything as well. And they just kept, you know, postponing it. And no matter whether you talk to the second chamber or no matter whether you spoke to the government itself. And again, I say it, it's a pity of how that situation turned out.
What about the casinos? Because, you know, every local person that I speak with, they want to know how is it that the casinos were able to get away all these years without paying what it was supposed to pay, just to find out that legally the money could not be collected, and now in the budget of 2016 that money is there that they're going to collect.
There was a big dispute on the charging of the fees in particular, on the what do you call them? The ones at the door, the checker at the door itself that government employs. We used to charge the casinos the fees for that, and they challenged that how they had to pay for that. And I think that is now being, whether it be rectified or what.
The controllers?
Yeah, that's it, the casino controllers. And that was a big dispute there. It's the same thing like, I think that Telem and even UTS had a big dispute and held back monies from BTP. Government, I think, lost out close to 8 million as well there. But getting back to the casinos, it's a real pity that, you're pushing, some of these bills are pushed away. I mean, they have to be collected, and I pay my taxes. They don't joke with me when it comes to putting attachment on my salary to pay taxes if you're a day or two or whatever it is late. And I can't tell you I can't give any excuse. I don't go and collect the casinos, but it is something that needs full attention of a receiver. And one of the things though that you get, probably the biggest issue is the amount of employment that the casinos do, and then usually that's the first thing that they throw at you. Well, it's either taxes or the salaries of employees, and that's what you generally get whenever a big company gets in any real issues, is that they always throw the first thing, well, I couldn't pay taxes because I was busy paying employees and it was a bad year. But again, that's no excuse for them not to pay, and I don't think why it got out of control like this.
Well, I had a former casino worker on the program, and he stated that when you go to the casinos, you're not seeing our people working there like in the past years. So who are they hiring if it's not our people?
No, Oral, and again, I am saying the same thing. I can agree with you. I'm not a real casino person. I don't go to the casinos. If I do, it's because I was having dinner next door or something like that. So you don't see me there. But it is a general impression from our population is that you're not seeing the local people there. And what is, I think, an even larger issue is you tend to have not only not our own local people, but you tend to have only one type of sex in the casino, which is female gender. Young men are finding it more and more difficult to get jobs in the hospitality industry. It's gotten to a point where it's nearly discriminatory.
Moving to the hospital, and you promised that you'll build a new hospital.
That's right.
The current minister of public health is saying that there was nothing.
Oh, he's full of baloney. Because I can tell you, when I say that was the biggest promise, and I still maintain that we could have gotten it done had government stayed together. A lot of work was done by a company, and people could go look them up online, a company called VAMED, VAMED. We sat with the SZV. SZV was going to partially finance it. The Austrian government was ready to give 2% loan as part of the whole program itself. The hospital itself, the Smart Medical Center, was brought in to discuss the property and the ownership of the hospital. Then I think they're called TAC from the United States of America, which is the tourism, the medical tourism part of it. They were going to be involved in renting part of the building, so that the asset was going to be owned by the SZV, because we spend over 30-something million sending people abroad. So that's how you would have had it. That means you would have had more specialists come to the island, not only to do medical tourism, but also operate on our own local people, and thus also people from the neighboring islands. So would have been a beautiful project. Or I think it was in the tune between $100 and $110 million. The financing was being worked out with SZV, and like I told you, coming in with the Austrian government. And the company VAMED, let me tell you how they came about to being. They just built 2 hospitals in Trinidad. I think they built hospitals in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean as well. They're very large. And in Europe, they built hospitals in the Netherlands as well. And they brought something to the table that, that it was quite unique, which is the loans coming from the Austrian government and the European community itself. And now the current minister, okay, fine. He threw that out the window because, of course, it was an up and our coalition partners, Mr. DeWeaver and Ms. Marlin, and at that time the USP as well, initiative. So you threw that out, and now they're going to hire a firm, make a terms of reference. So now you have to go and find the firm. So you got to put out a bid for the firm to do the terms of reference. You have to do a terms of reference for the firm that does the terms of reference. When that is done, then they will put out another terms of reference for which company would be able to come in and manage the construction. There is a big difference when we chose the company VAMED over, for example, I'll give you a quick one. In Curacao, Ballas Nadam was building or is building the Curacao Hospital. Ballas Nadam is the same company that built our pier. So it's a contractor. You understand?
Do they have knowledge in building
hospitals?
They
just know about construction. VAMED here was busy with the business plan for the hospital, was busy with, for example, further training of the staff. That is part of their position. Also, the equipment in the hospital, not only procuring it and acquiring it, but also during the term of the loan, they would maintain the equipment. And now the most important part is that what they would have put out a bid was the construction of the hospital. So local companies would have been able to build the hospital. Local electrical companies, local plumbers, you name it, contractors would have been used here. What they were bringing in is their knowledge in being able to design from A to Z of the hospital. And like I said again, not only was it the construction of the building of the hospital, but it was also the specialists and everything that was coming. So to me, it was a well thought out program. And that is one of the ones that hurt the most, because here I had the opportunity to take the promise, the biggest promise that we made during the election, and to really show the population that just like the other projects that we've done, we would have a beautiful, well up-to-date facility hospital that is second to none for the population of Savannah.
They're also saying that you did not have any bidding process when you dealt with the Swiss company.
Well, but I look at it in terms of the bidding. If the bidding would have been done with local construction, like for example, the company would have designed the hospital, everything else, and the construction would have gone to bid. The plumbing would have gone to bid, electrical would have gone to bid. But I see no problem in bringing in a company that has expertise in designing and building. The Curacao Hospital is so far out of budget now, Oral, because they have a contractor building it. They had to bring in all kinds of different firms to design it. Here you had a turnkey package, one company being able to design, and not a fly-by-night company. I'm telling you, anybody can go online and see the company itself. So you have a beautiful opportunity to have finished a hospital, and I believe they were estimating in 2 years. So within the governing term that, we would have been in, would have been done, and the people would have been saving a tremendous amount of money. SZV would have been the owner of the hospital. Samada Medical Center would have continued operating it, and we would have had also medical tourism, renting an area there that would have brought in people to stay in our hotels and everything else, and we would have been what Puerto Rico was for us years ago, which is now, we go to Miami for medical, and now, Colombia and things like that.
I've been getting some calls from colleagues, and they're saying that they're hearing that the current government is going to fall. Are you in negotiations with anyone
No, or I'm in no negotiations with anyone in the present government. It's only recently some of them tell me hello again. So I try to be cordial, but no, there's no. I can assure you there is no discussion whatsoever outside of the present 7 members of the opposition.
I had MP Sylvia Matsu here in the program, and he said, well, basically you were checkmating them by bringing in more people, and and when you had 10, which you mentioned in this program, then you have a stable government, and that was not something that they appreciated.
Well, Oral, the problem with having 8 is then everybody's a key maker, and the demands, if they're not, if the demands are not met, government is always threatened to fall. And you can't govern like that, Oral, because you can't wake up every morning and ask every MP, did you get your wish? Because you're trying to build a country. You're trying to design programs, fix areas of concern, and it can't be just based on their own personal issues. Or it is you got elected on a party. You didn't get elected as a person, unless we change the laws and then everybody runs for their own. So while you can say that you try to checkmate them because there's too much demands, or I mean the demands were too much. That's all.
So historically, from the time you started politics, you've been the largest vote getter. But do you have any regrets the way you done things in the last year with this government and how things went?
Oh, I have a lot of regrets. I mean, and when I say regrets, I would consider it more like, yeah, you could do things differently. Hindsight is always 20/20. If you look at the list, for example, the ones that jump, I should have had them on the list, right? But a lot of people question, Theo, why you put this one on the list? Who would have thought that Maurice Lake would have jumped ship? I mean, you've been working with him for over 20 years. You're part of the party. You're in discussion. But Oral, to find a real caliber of a person, you give them power, and then you really see what that true nature brings out. And it's unfortunate, of what it was. So yeah, if you want to think about it. Probably a list. While, as a party leader, you're always looking, you want to win the election. I mean, you want to win the election. But now, you got to look at your list of having people that really want to see this country move forward. I mean, it can't be always about what position that person is going to get, whether they're going to be minister, whether they're going to be a prime minister, whether they're going to be senator, and if they don't get what they want, then they're down the road. Then, why be part of a party? Why put yourself on a list? It's become too individual and not about the country.
You look at the situation today and the island, and it's a big problem when you have 5 governments in 5 years. You think that could ever be fixed? You think that trying to stop ship jumpers, which I think in a way is kind of healthy because it cleanses the system, but it's just being done too much. But you're an experienced politician. What do you think about it?
Or you'll never be able to eliminate it completely because it just doesn't work. But like, for example, next week I've been invited to the opening of the new cruise bay on Tortola. And they are, the birth of that new cruise bay in Tortola is because of our changes in government. The same cruise lines that are built in Tortola wanted to extend our pier too. And because you had so many changes in government, that process was never finalized. And and then there's a Dutch saying, there's an iemand zijn dood is the anders brood, and in our case, we lost out, and guess what? They're pushing ahead. So I've been invited, and I'm going to be, it's going to be interesting seeing their project next week when I go down for the day.
So it's a large pier that they're building?
They built a brand new pier. It holds 2 ships. What it was is that the cruise line, Norwegian Cruise Line and Disney Cruise Line gave the government there a guarantee of the amount of passengers, which is similar to what they would have done here. and we would have extended Pier 2. We would have then been the only place in the world that would have had nearly all the major brands committed to St. Martin for the space of 20 years.
Why didn't happen here? Why?
Well, because in 2011, when I was kicked out of government, at that time, you know, the present government is there. Well, anything to do with Theo and anything to do with a project that we started and talks continue, they stop it because it's got to be shown that it's no good. Well, guess what? It's so no good, let me put it in very bad Sabbath English, it's so no good that it was done now in Totola.
Wow.
So there we go. And you have a St. Kitts that is now over the 1 million passenger mark. Who would have ever thought of that years ago as well? And you know, it's a worrisome situation. Or
in case you call, whenever you call, you have to turn your TV off. It's very important that you turn your TV off. If you don't turn your TV off, we can't put you on the air. It's very, very important that you do that. So we're noticing people are calling, but if you have your TV on, you can't go through. Made some upgrades to the system. It's very, very important that you turn your TV off, or else it's not possible. So with all the things that are happening right now, we have the Emilia Wilson Park, and there was a lot of complaint that you gave preferential treatment to the cruise industry in that park, and the cannon price was also below market price.
Yeah, but Oral, when you look at the project that they're delivering, $15 million they're going to invest, which Carnival Cruise Lines is going to be pumping in, I think, close to $5 million into the project itself. It means basically the remodeling of the entire estate, the houses there, they will be brought up to what it used to be 50 years ago. I mean, all beautiful infrastructure going in there. When, if you look, I'll just give you a quick example. The land that Maho has been built on, do you know what the Erfbach is for the land there? I think it's close to 1 cent per square meter. This is nothing new. When you look at countries like Jamaica, Bahamas, Barbados, Turks and Caicos, they gave not only property up for the investment to be done, but also they gave the loan, and the governments guaranteed the loan. Here's an opportunity to continue enhancing the tourism product in our country, not only for the cruise, but also for job creation, taxis bringing people, you name it, to the facility, and upgrading of our national heritage as well.
Okay. Oral Gibbes Live on caller. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Gibbes, and good evening to your speaker there, Mr. Theo Heyliger.
Yes.
Good evening.
I heard you ask him a question concerning the employees at the casino just now. I did not like that answer because he say he does not go to the casino. He only visit when he goes for dinner and he around there. I don't think if he was the leader of the country that you have to go to the casino to know what's happening, because you are the leader of the country. I could remember when your grandfather was the leader of the country. And I work in the casino, and if we have a misunderstanding with the casino, whether it's 11 or 12 o'clock at night, your grandfather come there, they close the doors, and the management and the dealers, the workers, they work out the problem. He always was there, you know, whenever there's a problem. It don't have to be casino. It could be any kind of company that have employees. And as you say, you agree that they have just feminine ladies working. But I think as a leader, you should make sure that, you know, that the local people get that type of job. Because when you go to Aruba, Curacao, you see Arubians working in the casino. And you see Curaçaolians working in the casino. And St. Martin is all strangers. You can't get 10 local people in the casino. So see, if you ever get back in government, see what you can do about that.
Well, thank you, Oral, and if I am able just to respond to the caller. I just want to make sure, no, listen, if there's ever a problem anywhere, it doesn't have to be a casino, it could be a restaurant, it could be a store, it could be a household. I have no problem in going, of course, to discuss and try to do whatever it can be to mediate any issue with our people and the operators there, and that's part of the job, whether I'm a parliamentarian, whether I'm a minister, or whether I'm just Theo. It doesn't matter to me. I am there. It's just that when I'm saying it is that you don't go there every night. I'm not a real gambler per se. I gamble in terms of life, but not in a casino. And if I'm called, of course I'll go in. And I agree with the caller in that sense. We have to start looking at not only casinos but everywhere. And you know, and St. Martin definitely needs that.
All right. Oral Gibbs Live, your own caller. Hello.
Good evening, good evening to the up leader. It's nice to hear the up leader rambling on with the questions you are asking him and polishing up everything and making everything look nice. But the up leader was in government so much years. Why did he look at the hospital before he looked at the bridge, the causeway? We have to set priorities. The hospital was more a priority than the bridge. And the next thing there, why did he let the American Medical University get away with all that money? All that money could have been in the government coffers. It was Theodore, Heyliger, Frankie Myers, and Shikimoto. Those are the ones who let the American Medical University get away with all those money. That could have been well in the government coffers for the budget. Good night.
Thank you, Carla, and good evening again as well. Let me just make sure we start on two things. The budget for the bridge was financed through the harbor itself. Being part of, I think you even have a commercial that says Slack on your television program, Oral, and you would notice that the bridges of the country fall under the St. Martin Lagoon Authority, which is the port. So the port financed that. The port also gives monies towards the hospital. I was not the Minister of Health at that time as well, but I stated that it would be a priority of the UP to establish a new hospital. And like I stated as well, had we been given the opportunity, it would have been finished in this term of office. So yes, the priorities were, it was the first priority of this governing program to be able to do. And I want to make sure we get this very straight with the AUC. AUC in 2010, the financial institution came to us, one of the auditors of the company, and asked us, we as government, what could we do? Would we be willing to accommodate in terms of building permits, etc., for a new purchaser of AUC? And we were able to find out that it was DeVry and everything as well. Mr. Shikimoto looked at the possibility. As a matter of fact, the financial institution told us that we would have gone close to 80 million, I believe, in profit taxes had the sale gone right. You had a change again in government at that time as well. And also you had it up to the tax office that makes the final deal in terms of whether to forgive certain taxes and things like that, because they have a certain independent authority. So I can tell you one thing, there is no way that any, whether Shikimoto, Mr. Franklin Myers, or myself, or the council of ministers at that time gave any compensation other than the position of the construction of the new building, which was like $70 million in terms of building permits. We as a government never made any decision on granting that kind of reduction. I can tell you that.
Oral Gibbs Live, you're on caller. Hello.
Yeah, I would like to ask the parliamentarian, why didn't he pay the pension fund and the insurance SSE?
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, why didn't he pay when he was in government? Those two institutions there.
Can you
already taken from the.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that question? Can you repeat it, because part of what you said we didn't hear it. Can you repeat that question, please?
I would like to know why the honorable parliamentarian, when he was in government, that he did not pay the SSA institution and the pension fund.
Well, let me make sure we understand. I don't, it was always budgeted, Oral, in terms of the SZV and the pension, the APS at that time. I know that a lot of discussions were going on in terms of the old debts that even go back as far as the Netherlands Antilles days of what we owed. You know, I don't see the accounts payable of government or see every check that goes out for government. I did make sure that in terms of budgeted wise, that the monies are paid for these two institutions. So, I mean, I can tell you for sure, you know, I didn't want to hold back any monies from them. And if there was a payment backlog or whatever, it's because of the cash flow of the country. It has probably nothing to do in terms of not wanting to pay. It's probably sometimes that it couldn't pay. And but again, it is still on the books of government to eventually pay. I mean, if you look at many countries in the world owe pension funds and social premiums there as well, and a lot of these pension funds themselves even invest into the countries. You got many countries that use the pension funds to invest into huge infrastructure projects and things like that. And in this case, I believe that we've been paying. It's just sometimes that it wasn't up to date right away.
Oral Gibbs Live, young caller. Hello.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Honorable Heyliger.
Good evening.
You said that you are not in agreement with the selling of the government building. I find you to be correct. You are correct in that. But that kind of style is not a reason, for it is a sad thing when your grandfather sold Fort Amsterdam, the people's heritage. And we have to be disrespectful in the sense when wanting to go to visit Fort Amsterdam or to explain youths about it and all that sort of a thing. It was wrong to have school the people's patronage, the people's heritage. Wrong, completely wrong. So it's not of research. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you, caller, and appreciate the call as well. I want to make sure I didn't say that I was against the sale of the government building. I said that it needed to be debated properly in Parliament and shouldn't be rushed through in a budget situation. Let's get back to Fort Amsterdam. You know, there's many things that politicians and my grandfather is God bless and rest him now, but that he's been blamed for in the past. And you know, sometimes we can continue beating you know, the horse or the dog, and we need to find solutions. And one of them was the repurchase, but not only the repurchase of Fort Amsterdam, but also the upkeep and the rebuilding of Fort Amsterdam. And that was one of the plans, again, I hate to say this, that was being negotiated with the owners of DV. And I think that at that time they were very forthcoming, and they were willing to let us buy back the fort under the position that we, you know, remodel it and bring it back to the standards of what it was. And you know, again, like I say, if you're constantly changing the governments, and then the other government comes in, they don't consider that a priority anymore. A lot of these things get left behind. And one of those is the Fort Amsterdam. And I would like to see that being bought back and also redone for the people of St. Martin. And I think it would, in addition, it will be a great tourism product too, because you know, people will visit it, and not only our local people, but also the tourists, to see what the heritage is of our country.
So those plans didn't go through? Because
No,
I saw
they
some
didn't go
plans.
through either.
Really?
No, I think you saw them. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that the port showed them to
Yeah.
you as well. They were looking at building another pier down to Fort Amsterdam, bringing the boardwalk completely down to there, the sand, the beach area continuing down there, and then the redevelopment, not the redevelopment, but actually repairing the old fort and turning it into something quite beautiful.
That would have really transformed this island.
Oh yes, it would. Well, Phillipsburg would have continued. You know, that's the whole situation. Or with the building of the port, and then you saw the building of the boardwalk, which I took so much criticism for, and the beach and everything as well. There was a whole master plan done for Phillipsburg that also included a new cultural center, an area of a library for the money exchange and our country, how that was done. You know, and like I said, it's a pity that, but it's reality of the political situation that we have.
Oral Gibbs Live, you're on caller. Hello? You there, caller?
Hello.
Yes, you're on live, caller.
I just want to get back to something there with the American Medical University.
Very okay.
He was not responsible for that, neither Frankie nor Shikimoto. Then why did the judge say it? The judge said it in the newspaper that it was still Shikimoto and Frankie Myers is the one who let him get away with all that money. Good night.
All right.
Let me just clarify. I don't know if it was the judge or the newspaper printing it, but what they did mention, and I think when the whole court case went on, is that we had meetings. Of course, we have meetings. Tomorrow, I have meetings with local people. I have meetings with investors. That goes on. It's your job to meet. But I could tell you for sure, the government itself at that time never gave any kwijtschelding or any agreement to reduce the amount that AUC had given to, had owed the country of St. Martin. And the only thing that I can tell you, and many discussions went on, was the construction of the new campus that they built there. And also one of the agreements was that they would have switched over from their generators there to also GB itself. You know, a lot of things were in the agreement, but I can tell you there was never a part where it says that you are going to not have to pay taxes to the country. I mean, why would we do that? And you could do so much for the country with that kind of monies, you know. And these kind of speculations is the reason why you get all these innuendos. But I could tell you that for sure, had government stayed in, that money would have been into government coffers.
Because I know how politics is, but what if some of your former members come over to you and say, you know what, let's forget about what happened. Let's form a government. Mm-hmm. Would you say yes or no?
I like that one, Oral. First of all, you know, I'm always open to talking. A lot of people have always said that one of the greatest assets that I have is also probably my greatest downfall, which is my heart, you know, and I'm always willing to talk to people. I don't know how the rest of the party would feel, but like I said, I'm always open to discuss and talk, because a lot of times, you know, Oral, some people are led in some darkness and always told that the end is a bright light, and sometimes that bright light is the train, you know, and they get knocked over. And it's a pity, because I think that some of those individuals had a great future, but you know, it's hurtful, and I will say it. But so, like I said, to answer you directly, I'm always willing and hopefully able to speak to everyone, but I don't know what would transpire out of that after.
But there's no discussions going on right
now?
No.
There's no discussions other than hello, how you doing? How's your mom? How's the kids? Things like that. That's it.
All right. We have 40 seconds remaining. It's all yours.
Well, Oral, first of all, thank you for having me on the program. Thank you to all the viewers and the callers that called in. And hopefully I was able to clarify some of the issues that have been brought forward, and some of well, all of the questions that have been brought forward. And if not, you know, please, you know, feel open and free to you know, speak to me anytime, because a lot of things that are said out there, you know, are constantly innuendos and a lot of rumors. And the problem is with St. Martin is that we allow these rumors to live a life of its own, and they're not substantiated by facts or the real issues. But for that, I thank the good Lord and the people of St. Martin for putting me where I am today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, MP Heyliger, and much success to you.
Thank you.
That's it for now. See you next time right here on the Oral Gibbs Live. Until then, good night. Take care. Bye.